How you hire says a lot about the kind of business you run. We're going to talk today about some of the crazy hiring things that are going on today, especially in the world of AI, and also talk about how you can really attract the right kind of talent to your business. Hey, my name is Blake Benz. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast, and you come to the right place to learn how to do business better. We talk a lot on the show about the things that actually work in business and not theory and fluff and, whatever trendy thing that gets shared about on social media, like the real actionable, tangible stuff. Before we jump in, we got a quick ad for the show. Check this out, and don't forget you can support the Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. Be back soon. When disaster strikes in your home, do you know who to count on? I'm talking about when water damage, fire damage, or mold becomes a problem in your house. You need someone that you can trust who's going to get your house back in working order. That's why I love recommending Best Option Restoration here in Northwest Arkansas. Best Option Restoration is the perfect choice for when you need that initial response for damage in your home. They're a national leader here in our Northwest Arkansas community, and they are restoration specialists that can give you the peace of mind you need when you're facing the unthinkable. Your home is somewhere special, which is why you need someone who sees the value in your home and wants to get you taken care of as quickly and efficiently as possible. Best Option Restoration is so committed to helping you with your home that they have an answer line that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where you can talk to an actual person about getting a specialist out to your home and resolving whatever damages you're seeing in your house. So if you experienced fire damage, water damage, or discovered mold in your home, call Best Option Restoration today to restore your house back to the home you love. Call 479-458-8840 or click the link in the episode description to contact Best Option Restoration today. So on last episode, I talked about the how companies are using AI today, and specifically I talked about how companies were even using AI to write job rejection, application rejection letters and things like that. And we're getting to a place where there's a lot of excitement around AI and what you can automate with it and what you can do with it. And, it's tough. I got a Facebook message the other day that someone said, "Hey, I've been following your content for a while, and I know you don't like AI, or seems," and then he added, "seems like maybe you don't like how it's not used appropriately." And I will say, again, I give this disclaimer all the time. I don't dislike AI. I don't hate AI. I have a premium ChatGPT membership. I pay for a premium ChatGPT membership for one of my employees. I don't have any issue with AI. What I get concerned about is AI just simply replacing every facet of human connection and people looking for any opportunity to, I don't know. I see some of this stuff and I'm like, are we really being more efficient? Are we really being more practical here? Are we really getting better results, or are we just patting ourselves on the back for being more tech savvy and technological in our businesses? Yeah, I don't know. But I do want to talk about this thing I mentioned in my podcast on Monday. On Monday, like I mentioned, I talked about companies that were using AI to write the rejection letters. And then coincidentally, 100%, totally coincidentally, surely it was probably a Redditor who listens to the podcast who then posted this, but it actually was just coincidentally. This did get posted on social media on Monday, and it was someone posting their job application rejection letter. And what it reads is, it says, "Application update for your position." And it says, "Hi, so-and-so. Thank you for applying to this position. Unfortunately, we will not be moving forward with your application at this time." And then it says double bracket rejection_message, which, by the way, whenever you are writing a prompt or writing to ChatGPT, you can use bracketed text to define a variable. So you might say, bracketed text company, and then provide a list of companies. And then when you give ChatGPT a prompt around writing someone's company name, it'll pull from that list and put the company name down there. Now, if you've done any kind of newsletter or email list, this is nothing new. This actually isn't like something brilliant with ChatGPT. Anytime you're on a mailing list and you get a newsletter that says, "Hey, Blake," it's not because someone's actually writing your name. What the actual template says is, "Hey, bracket, first name in bracket." And then people who don't do it correctly, you actually do get the letters that actually say, "Hey, first name." So not a new concept. Again, if you've done any kind of email marketing, this is all super familiar to you. But so this email says bracketed rejection message, and then they have the actual rejection message that says, or not the rejection message, the prompt that says, write a warm but generic rejection email that sounds polite yet firm. Do not mention specific reasons for rejection. Make the candidate feel like they were strongly considered, even if they weren't. Remember to use the candidate's name and company name variables. We appreciate your interest in this position. Wish you all the best in your future endeavors. So, I'm just like, okay, it's a little bit of a flub here. And the worst part about it is that this person who sent out this rejection letter clearly didn't look at what they were sending. They clearly didn't, just one look at it, they would have realized, oops, I accidentally have that in there. Now I get some people are stressed, some people work lots of hours, and some people have a lot on their plate. And sure enough, this could have been an intern or an hourly employee who their boss said, "Hey, this was a position that got 600 applications. Send this out." And it absolutely, let's give the benefit of the doubt. This could have been someone who genuinely was trying to do the right thing and do right by the applicants. And because, by the way, I mean, these days it's crazy in the digital world how many people apply to positions. I listed a position a few years ago that got like 200 applicants in like 24 hours. I listed a position again about maybe 3 or 4 months ago. That thing covered me up. And then I just listed another position about probably 3 weeks ago. And like within like 4 hours, I had, something like 30 or 40 applicants to it. And it's very overwhelming, by the way. It's like, it's just, I mean, you really got to have a process for all of this. You got to have a process and a procedure for all of this. Otherwise, it really just, it overwhelmed me of like, how do I, because also what's funny about this too, and this is like a total random segue, by the way. If you do ever find yourself applying for a job or you're giving advice to someone who's applying for a job, one great piece of advice you can give them is that in their application, they should make sure that their application talks about the actual position they're hiring for and that their resume and what have you talks about work experience related to that profession or related to skills that are listed as preferential in the job description, things like that. The reason for this, and this is again before the world of AI, but even more commonplace now with AI, the reason for this is because now companies are, I mean, if I'm getting 200 applicants, me as some random small business owner, you think about large corporations, large companies, I mean, they're getting thousands upon thousands of applications. And so they're using AI, they're using filters to filter out people who don't, list their positions or list their experience or don't seem like the right candidates. Even like looking at the 200 applications that I got, it's funny, like for that position, it was a video editor role for Podcastable for the podcast company. And you'd have people who'd apply who had absolutely zero editing experience. They've never done it before in their life. And I almost feel bad because it would be people who'd be like, I really need this job and I think I can do it. And I got let go and I've just been looking for work and I was in a sales role and I have always loved YouTube. And and it's not to make light of anyone's situation. It's just not the right fit. But I find myself in this like bleeding heart, like, oh man, like I'm reading through this guy's application and it's probably not a good fit. I don't really have the time or capacity to train or teach someone video editing. And honestly, it would be better if I wasn't having to do this for 200 of these and I was just, automating it or whatever. So I understand why it happens. I understand why companies do it. I totally get it. So again, advice for you if you're ever job hunting or if you're giving advice to someone, they got to make sure the language is actually in their application for the position that they're applying for. But all that to say, that was like the longest segue, right? Giving the benefit of the doubt, this could have been some hourly person who was just sending out tons of rejection messages. But I do think that, taking away the maliciousness of it, there is a significant missed opportunity here. You have a company that did not communicate value and dignity to a job applicant. And I have a problem with that. I do. I have a problem with that. And I try in these conversations to not make this seem too virtue signaling or overbearing towards, like, I'm not saying you need to send a cake to every person you reject, but I do think that many times when we think about the kind of business we want to have, when we think about the kind of culture we want to have, the culture being, this is a in my mind, it's a very commonplace term. It's a very well understood term, but you may not understand this term. You may not have heard this term. And culture effectively refers to the feelings and attitudes and uh, I'd even say like work ethics and how things get done within a business. And you could probably think of, excuse me, you could probably think of a great business that you worked for that you loved. I worked for a bakery when I was in high school and I loved it so much. I insisted on being able to come back and work for free. This is a place you would call a positive work culture. And you can also think about a place that you've worked for that, Sunday night rolls around and you are anxious, you're miserable. You think about, man, I really don't want to go back there. I don't want to have to go to work tomorrow. That for me was when I was working in Houston, Texas, when I was an inner city school teacher. And the kids were great. I love what I got to do. The administration was pretty terrible and it was pretty difficult to work for those people. And sure enough, Sunday nights, I was anxious and thinking, oh gosh, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can go back to work tomorrow. A very toxic, negative work environment. Um, so a lot of times you have businesses that they really don't understand this term. They don't really understand culture. They think that it's the old joke, and I won't belabor this too much because I think this has been shared so much on social media that a lot of people already understand this and know not to do this. But, I think a lot of people misunderstand culture as the pizza party. We did a pizza party. Woo! There's a lot of energy and excitement around that. And yeah, we got the pizza party. We did it, and they tick it off the box. They check the box and, all right, same time next year. And every other day of the year is pure misery. But it's like, what do you mean you don't like working here? We did a pizza party. Or, for me in Houston, we had this big like fajita lunch. And I remember my principal being like, well, these fajitas this is like seriously what? This is verbatim what was said. She said, "Yeah, these fajitas this was getting all this together. This was pretty expensive. So hopefully this, addresses some of the frustrations you guys have been feeling." And I almost wanted to laugh. I was like, the fajitas are delicious. They were Papacitos, good fajitas. It's a big chain in Texas. I was like, but I don't know. I don't really feel valued now. I appreciate the gesture. It's like when you're married, you can buy flowers for your wife, you can get a gift for your spouse, but it doesn't overwrite the attitude and communication, the way you talk to them, the way you value them, the way you respect them, the way you acknowledge them and acknowledge their giftings and all of those things with that. It's a nice gesture. That's all it is. So, really, the point of today's podcast episode is understanding that when you think about the kind of business you want to build and you think about the team members that you want to have in your company, there are many factors to consider. There's lots of things to think about. And unfortunately, many people don't think about this until the person has worked there for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years. And it's like, oh man, we should really recognize them. We should really appreciate them. Man, they've been here a while. Man, they've put in the time. They've done their duty. Like, how do we make sure? And a lot of times, frankly, I think some of us have sort of like an internal clock of realizing, okay, that person's probably If I know the average person works here for about 6 years and this person's on year 5, they're probably thinking about, what's next. They're probably thinking about moving on. That would be really bad for me. I don't have to hire someone else. I don't have to find somebody else. And so I think sometimes we naturally do this without realizing because we sort of intuitively know, oh, that person is probably towards the end of their season with us. So unfortunately, many people don't have this conversation until the employee has worked there for a while. And really, if you want to build a business that delivers meaningful results to your customers, it starts with valuing your people. It starts with valuing your employees. I'll never forget, I was at a fast food restaurant and this person could not have cared less about their job. It was not a great experience, and I don't necessarily fault that person. I mean, could they have been just, an unhappy person? Absolutely. Um, but I do think there's a possibility that there was an employee who didn't feel valued, who didn't feel appreciated. So if I'm not valued, why would I show that? Why would I show that and share that with the customers? A lot of this, it's weird to me how business owners don't see how well connected these things are. Chances are you are not going to be working directly with your customers. If you're the business owner, chances are you're not going to be working directly with your customers. Chances are you will be managing your employees, you'll be managing the brand, you'll be making the big picture decisions, you'll be in big sales conversations, you'll be in big, strategic direction conversations, acquisitions, things that you had been doing that maybe you won't do any longer. But really, I mean, brand is a major piece of your business whenever as you sort of step into that owner CEO role, and as your business gets better and gets bigger, it's just simple time allocation. You are not going to be able to spend as much time with your customers as you were when you were small. That's not an excuse to be flippant or disinterested in your customers. I've always wanted my customers to be able to reach me whenever they wanted to, within reason, as a little asterisk there. And I always wanted my customers and always have wanted my customers to feel like I am accessible, but more importantly, intentional with my relationship with them. So that's why I do short form video to customers. That's why I had a customer today that I called on the phone and had nothing to sell him. Called him on the phone today just because I thought, I haven't checked in with this guy in a little bit. So I called just to, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How are things? And it's a short 5-minute conversation. So I mean, I'm finding ways to continue to invest in those relationships, but still, even with those things in mind, I'm not able to spend all of my time with my customers as maybe I would have been when I was small. Now, when someone works for you, they will never care about the business as much as you do. Bottom line, we don't need to qualify that. I don't think I need to give a big explanation. Like, there's no math behind this. This is just a very simple truth. They're never going to care as much as you do because it's not their business. It's a paycheck. I think it's a little weird how we expect people to treat it more than a paycheck, where it's like, man, you're not willing to go all out for me. And it's like, I mean, it's a job. It's not a cult. It's a job. Like, hello. It's not a cult. It's a job. Like, let's stop being weird about it, right? So recognizing that if these people who work for you are going to have the majority of touch points with your customer, why would you then not want to invest in them so that they feel incentivized and they feel empowered to make sure that the customer then in turn has the best experience possible? So thinking about this and understanding that this is an important point, I think that how you dignify, or rather acknowledge the dignity and acknowledge the value of your employees. I don't think this is something you turn on and off. I think this is something that just has to be a value for your business. It has to be just a true quality about your business. And if it is just a true quality about your business, that would mean that it is something that you do from the get-go, whether you've hired someone or not. And I think a lot about this, these values by which you do business by. These values are things that, again, you don't turn them on or off. There's no lever or button for it. It's just how you do business. So I have a value around my customers. And so it's not, oh, this customer spent a lot of money here, so I'm going to really show them value versus, well, that person spent $47, so I'm not going to care about them. Now, I think sometimes people miss the forest for the trees of what I'm not saying is everyone gets the same amount of time. Again, not strategically a possibility for your business. But I will say every customer gets the same respect from me and the same intentionality from me. They don't get the same amount of time, but they get the same acknowledgement of appreciation from me. So, thinking about that back in terms of your employees, or rather still with your customers, it's not, oh, I value my customers. So once you hit the $10,000 spending mark, now I really value it's not something you turn on once they've done something to earn it. It's just something you do because it's how you do business. So in the same way, when someone comes to work for you or they apply for a position, I don't I don't only show respect once I've welcomed them in and flipped the switch to, you applied, I hired you, so now I will treat you well. I point this out because many people do not understand that how you treat people from the get-go will dictate the kind of business that you have. So one of the things that I ran into with the video editing role that I mentioned a couple years back was I wanted to know beyond their portfolio, I wanted to see what kind of video work that they could do for me. So I talked to a friend of mine, Jackie Hermes, who runs a marketing company. And I said, "Hey, Jackie, here's a situation I'm in. I want them to do a little work for me to see their actual work with my content. Which, am I supposed to pay them? Am I not supposed to pay?" I just didn't know. And she was like, "You got to pay them. You got to pay them. It's just the right thing to do. And if you're going to be a business that has these values, wouldn't your first interaction with them then show those values?" And this made perfect sense to me. I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. 100%." So what I did was with the 200 applicants, I whittled it down to probably about 20, I think, like somewhere in there, 10 to 20. And I said, "Hey, I have a little project for you. I want you to spend an hour, maybe two, absolutely no more than that. But take about an hour. I'm going to send you a Google Drive. I have some content in there and just put together like a 1-minute video for me. Just whatever is interesting to you, whatever you like. It doesn't have to be a full minute. Just put something together for me. Let me see what you come up with. And regardless of the quality, regardless of where it goes, I'm going to pay you $100 for that." Now, the funny thing is, people who the number of people, the majority of people didn't ever get back to me. So I think that was kind of telling. But yeah, I mean, I'm spending money to hire people, and I did spend money. I think I probably paid out maybe 600, $700. So that felt right to me. It felt like the right thing to do. It doesn't mean that you always need to pay money when you're hiring someone, but in the specific situation that I was in, it was just the right thing to do. So with that in mind, I think we have opportunities to attract the right kind of people to our business. And I think when we disrespect people or we're rude to people or we treat them like they're nothing, I think that says a lot about how we really do business. And I got this email the other day. Let me see if I can find this email real quick. I got this email, and this guy had, we all get lots of emails, right? So this guy had emailed me looking to apply for a position, and he emails me and says, "Hey, I'd really like to apply to work at Good Advice." And I missed the first email, missed the second email. I see the third email. Third email says, "Hey, I don't know if you've been seeing this, but I'd really like to come apply for a job with you." And it's one of those things where I just knew right off the bat, there's no position that matches your expertise, unfortunately. So, but I didn't want to just ignore this guy. And the reason I didn't want to just ignore him was, again, because I I believe in doing the right thing. I just believe in showing people appreciation. So he emails me. Actually, I'm looking at it now. He sent me, no, yeah, hang on, 4 emails. So he sent me 4 emails, and the first one was back in May. And every couple weeks, he was sending me an email, and I felt bad. I felt bad that he had emailed me 4 times and hadn't heard back from me. So I emailed him back, and I said, "Hey, thank you for reaching out, and I'm sorry that I missed your earlier messages. We're not hiring for this position. We're not hiring for your skill set, but I did want to tell you, thank you for reaching out, and I want to wish you the best of luck in your hiring search. I know it isn't easy. Sincerely, Blake." Now, maybe I should have done more there. Maybe I should have been more. I don't know. And this is kind of like when I talk about like pay, for example. I think sometimes people go too far from ditch to ditch. I think, is there a world where I could have offered like, "Hey, let's get on a Zoom call and let's go through your resume and let's see how I can." I think there's a world where I could have done that. I think running a business, it's impossible to show that much, to give that much time. Like, you have to protect your time a little bit. But I do think people go from ditch to ditch where it's like, well, so I have to go do this now. And it's like, no, it's like, again, when I talk about pay, I think, and I shared a story today about a business that was losing employees. They were paying 12 an hour, and they were losing their employees to another business that was paying 15 an hour. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it's now the pay rates are so different even since then. And, the point that I was making there was, pay the 15. Like, you can pay your people well, or pay 16, pay a little bit more than what they can get elsewhere. And sometimes when I talk about pay, people think that I mean you should be paying 50 an hour for a role that gets 15 out. Like, there's so much, like, we have such a hard time dealing with extremes instead of just thinking about this practically. So I'm not saying that, and it's why I made the joke earlier about like, everyone who applies, you should send them a cake. Like, no, I'm not saying that. But there's just things you can do, and small things, small intentionalities you can do to appreciate people and to be kind to people and be empathetic for people. And part of this, I guess, is my upbringing. Part of this is my own bias. I think it's the rudest thing in the world to be a person hiring and to sit down with that person and say, "Hey, tell me what's in your resume. I haven't read it." It's like, this person, this person's here. They're right in front of you. It's like, you haven't even looked at it. I don't know. I think that's so incredibly rude. I think it's so incredibly disrespectful, but I don't know. What do I know? Right. So, don't be that. Actually, I do know. I know a lot. Don't be that guy. Don't do that. Like, come on, read the resume. At least pretend like you did the homework before the test happens. So, anywho, takeaways for today: wherever you are in your hiring process, first employee, 10th employee, 30th employee, really think about curating the experience from the first touch point all the way through when the person either gets brought on board or gets rejected. And part of that also means not stringing them along. It means not doing and I mean, seriously, these exist, because I applied to one of them years ago where it was a 9-month hiring process. You're irresponsible if that's you and you run a business like, if it's a 9-month hiring process. If there are 8 interviews and there's 4 tests and there's a panel interview and then this person and then a follow, and we're going to bring you back, and like, if you can't figure out if someone's qualified to work for you or not, this is a you problem. and stop wasting people's time. Stop disrespecting people. Figure your stuff out. And like seriously, come on. So anyway, I'm getting riled up here. But anyway, hey, thanks for listening to today's Good Advice podcast episode. Don't forget, if you enjoy the podcast, you're not following the podcast, what are you waiting on? Click the follow button or subscribe button wherever you're listening. And feel free to share the podcast with your friends, other business owners you might know. I love sharing this makes me feel like I'm Santa Claus. I love sharing the good advice with the world. I do love the people who listen to the show, though, and who are so kind and generous to spend their time listening to the podcast. So thank you for that. I wish you well today. I wish your business well today. And that's today's good advice. We'll see you later.